everyone. It is your favorite CEO, Miss Flo, and welcome to another episode of Neon Mike, where the conversation just glows. And this time, I'm in the Plus Ultra Entertainment Studio out here in National Harbor. Look at the scene. Look at the set. Isn't this absolutely fabulous? All right, but I have a very special guest with me. I have the illustrious, iconic rapper, actor, educator, just overall just wonderful person, Mama Princess.
Hey.
And let me just tell you like how we reconnected. First, we were coworkers.
Yes.
At a high school, and the funny way that we reconnected was through a mutual student.
Yes, that's right.
Miss Chanel. Now Chanel, she transferred schools, but she hit me up and she was just like, "Hey, Miss Mary, I want you to come to the showcase I was doing. I think it was at Busboys and Poets, right?
Busboys, yep.
And I was like, okay, sure. And I was, because I always support my students, no matter where they go, whether they choose to stay or go somewhere else. So I was like, okay, I'll go. And I just happened to see you, and I was just like, hold up, wait a minute. I was gagged.
Right.
Like, I was, like, so surprised. And shout out to Chanel. I know that, she's an overall wonderful person.
Yes. And it's crazy because she mentioned you, but I don't think she said your name because she was like, oh, I was in some artistic stuff at another school and I had a mentor and she was talking about you. But if she had said your name, then I would have been like, okay, because I want to say she mentioned the school, but I didn't put two and two together. Yeah. So it just all comes full circle.
It really was. And you have been still doing some wonderful things with scholars. You were doing the program, was it Fly By Light?
Yeah, I was doing a program with a different company. I was doing Fly By Light, but now I do my own called Royal Voices, which is readying our young aspiring leaders. But I've always, even before when you first met me, I've always done the work. It's just been in different venues, whether it was like inside of school with me being an educator, or either me being a teaching artist, using my artist platform. So it's always kind of circulated between the intersection of like arts, education, integration, and then like personal development and like wellness, but then I just kind of honed in on like using hip hop around it because I'm a hip hop artist. So yeah.
And the way you work with young people, even when I remember when you were like a coworker, it's like you always had this ability to like bring out the best. And scholars, like scoping out that talent, helping them hone in on that talent, and just let it go. Like every project that you did has always been fire. Like, what's your secret?
Well, so I think it's a couple things. I mean, first of all, I don't take credit. I say, it's the Most High's God, right? Like, I consider myself what I call like the Most High God's conduit, right? Like, Iyanla Van Zandt calls it, you know how some people are like clairvoyant? And then she said, I'm audio voyant. This is what she was saying about herself. And I was like, she is basically like, you can hear with like in talking to people, like what they're really saying or what they're really like. I just always had that ability, like since I was young. Like my mom used to be so afraid. I remember we would ride on a Greyhound bus going from DC to North Carolina, and I would just be talking to everybody. And my mother would be like, don't talk to people. But I didn't know how not to talk to people. So I think the secret was, one, I didn't have any fear of like talking to people. I didn't have, I probably should have, but I didn't have stranger danger. I really was like, I felt like everybody would like to talk to me. I don't know why. It's the Leo in me. I've always felt like that. But I always felt like I could understand the common man, like the common person. I don't know why. It just was an ability. But whenever I enter a space, I think very theatrically. Like, so when I came into the school, it was like, I imagined a movie, right? Like, so I was coming in third quarter, right? These kids hadn't had a teacher. So I was like, what movie does that remind me of? Sister Act. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so as soon as I was like, oh, okay, I'm Whoopi Goldberg, right? And I literally had that experience. I came in, the kids were excited at first because they wanted to have a teacher. But then when they realized, oh, we about to do some work? Oh, like even the parents were like, you're the theater teacher and they have homework? I was like, yes.
It's like that's so annoying because people just think with elective courses like ours, it's just like, it's going to be easy. They just like, they don't understand.
They thought it was a breeze course.
Yeah.
A bird course, as they say.
You know what I mean? And it's not. It's like there's so much work that goes into this craft. Yes, it can be fun.
Absolutely.
But it's like there's so many factors in producing what we do.
Absolutely,
And people have to
absolutely.
stop, have to take it seriously.
Yes, I think that by them not having had a teacher for like a year and a half, and also they really loved that teacher. So that was also a thing. So it was like, who are you and what you coming to bring? And because coming in, I met with so many people. I met with the principal. I kind of did like my research study of, for me, I think the sauce is whenever I come into a space, I'm like, what does it need? Right? Like from what I can offer, what does it need? And so what I saw was like, okay, you got these kids who didn't have a teacher, who loved the teacher that they had, and they were used to doing things a certain way. Then you've got this theater program that is there, but they haven't really been activated. You know what I'm saying? They hadn't really been activated. Then it was like, boom, okay. So the admin there was like, listen, okay, we don't know what kind of play to do. When I came in, they were doing Cinderella, right? And the crazy part was they were like it was like 2 weeks to production, and their admin person was pregnant, and she was about to go on leave. So it was like maybe like 3 weeks. So like we literally had like less than a month to turn it around. But that's my specialty. Like that's my specialty. So it was like, just getting people on board and coming together. And what I had time to do in the summertime was I worked the summer so I could work with the students, and I came up with like, okay, when I come back next year, I'm gonna treat this like Sister Act 2. How can I bring them together? Okay, I need them to be an ensemble, because if they, and then I was like, well, we can't really do like the classic plays and stuff like that, because I was like, we're dealing with Black kids in the inner city in school. Like, my thing is, do they even know Black theater history? Before I start teaching you Shakespeare and Meisner and all these other things, which is what we do to Black kids anyway, right? So my thing is, we always teach Black kids to admire and respect other cultures before they even know the dope stuff that their own culture. Like, so I'm like, nah. So I decorated my room with all Black Broadway, Black theater, like, because I was like, y'all know who Viola Davis is? They like, nah. Like, so like to me, and Viola Davis was big at that point. Like, How to Get Away with Murder was out. They knew her by face, but they couldn't identify the names. So I was like, okay, bet. So one day I was in a classroom, and I was like, I'm gonna do a survey of what popular movies are out at the time. Cause I was like, we need something that's gonna attach to everybody. What was hot at the time was Barbershop 3.
That's what I was about to get to.
Yeah.
Like, you did a great interpretation of that movie, and you made it so that the students can relate to it and basically translate it in their voice.
Yes.
And I think that's like, it's always a struggle, because sometimes as a teacher, you're tied down by the curriculum.
Correct.
Because it's like, it's so connected to standardized testing.
Yep.
But I'm just like, there's so many great Black plays that doesn't really get touched on enough.
Absolutely.
Like, where we should be doing Raisin in the Sun, we should be doing Fences and things like that, and then we should be doing our own interpretation of like Black culture classics, like Barbershop at the time. And like, that was very relatable, because think of the real conversations you have in the barbershop. Think of the lessons you learn. Like, it's even though it's like it's doing your hair, but it has a cultural institution. In the Black community.
Absolutely.
And to do a play like that for them, like, I know that they were on board. I remember they were so excited. You were doing promos. Yes. The kids were in character for social media.
It was a thing, and I think that's where you and I had such a synergy, because you have such a similar personality about, like, I love when I come in. It's difficult when you come into a school and it's like you got these big ideas, but everybody like
or like it's too much.
Yeah, it's too much. Or it's like you never treated me like that. Right. Like I was like, so listen. I was like, we gotta make them feel like Hollywood, and you was like, dope. Let's do the headshots.
Like,
let's do this.
When we did the photo shoot.
Oh, they were into it.
They was like, can you get me jumping up in the air?
Yeah.
They were like coming up with their own ideas.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, let's try it. Like, I was never like, you know what I mean? And this is when I was first started teaching, like year 1, year 2.
And it was funky, because it was like people were walking by like, yo, this has never been done before.
Right.
I asked the principal, I was like, yo, can we paint this room Black, because we don't have a little theater? Like, I was like, we have to stop asking Black students to imagine things and actually bring that.
Like, show them.
Yeah, but I'm like, can we get books? Can we get this? And the principal was like, yo, he saw what I was doing, and he was like, whatever you need. Like, he was like, yo, let's bring it in.
Because the students were engaged.
They
and
were.
And it's like, that's not an easy task to do, because
Listen,
like the kids will let you know.
if they don't like it,
like,
it's
it's like, it's so hard. But when we were doing those type of things and giving them the real Hollywood experience.
Absolutely.
Because like, as you're an actor, you got to get your headshots done for your portfolio, because that's how you, like, that's what you bring to audition.
Absolutely,
you know
absolutely.
I mean? And just to get them in that headspace and actually just do it, not just read about it.
Right.
Not just,
I wanted them to feel like how, like, okay, when we take them to the educational theaters, and it's like, we take them to Shakespeare Theater, we take them to Arena Stage. When you walk in, you see on the marquee, you see the headshots of the people, so you know, so you could connect. So when you go inside, you're like, oh, I'm following this character, you know what I'm saying? So it was like, when we did Cutting Up, it's like, oh, they need to be on the marquee. So when it walks in, it's like, oh, I know who are the lead characters. I know who the supporting characters. And they feel like, oh, I came for a show,
Right.
you know? And so for me, it was like, I worked with it was like I was working with you all, and then I worked with the people who were across the street, the Black-owned cafe, Eclectic Cafe. And I was like, listen, can we get a discount? Like, can we get like a meal? So like, when people come, can they, like, they say they're here for Cutting Up, and they get like a discount? He was like, absolutely. Him and his wife was down. And so it was like, we got the whole community involved. We got like the local barbershops. There was a barbershop called Cutting Up, but it was on the other side by off of what was MLK, but now it's Marion Barry Ave, right? And the barbershops was like, what you need? And they were very like, they were like, we put the flyers up, we canvassed the neighborhood, and we really got people excited because we were playing off of Barbershop 3 and playing off a beauty shop. So what I knew, right? One thing I knew instinctively was visuals work for young people and for folks in the community. So when I put out the audition, I put out the picture with Eve, Queen Latifah, and Nicki Minaj, which is real, and then Common, you know what I'm saying? So when people saw it, the kids could be like, oh, I'm auditioning for Nicki Minaj. Oh, I'm auditioning for the Common role. Oh, I'm auditioning for Ice Cube. In the backdrop, the secret sauce, when you ask about that, it was like, oh.
You did. I just saw the baby girl in the window.
She like, hey, what we doing? What we doing? Look, the babies are outside. And so it was like, they had this idea of the characters that they wanted to play, but I was also, like I said, case studying. So I was watching at lunchtime. I was watching in class, and I would just kind of like move around, like, who do I feel has this a bit, like, whether they showed like talent in acting or not. I'm a soul person, so I could feel, like I said, that audio voice. Like, so I'm just walking around, and so I see this student named Jalen Green, and he wasn't in the theater department.
Right.
But I was like, that's Ice Cube. I was like, he is that character, and he was a rapper.
Yeah.
But he wasn't in the theater arts program, and I was like, yo. And I literally went up to him, and I was like, listen, I'm doing this play, and I was like, it's coming up, and I was like, I just feel like you're this character because I just see it. And he was like, he was like, tell me more. Yeah. And I'm like, yo, I'm thinking I could see it in you. And I was like, will you come audition? You know, and so before we had the auditions, kids started coming. They was like, oh, y'all know Miss Princess, y'all know Mama Princess. And kids just started coming to my room that wasn't even in my class.
Yep.
Because we was doing all types of stuff. We was doing meditation. And then you know how many kids be in a class. Like, it was like trying to engage like 30 to 40 kids in a class. And then some of them
the classes they're not big.
Oh,
They were like read shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah, like, yes. And then I'm like, so you have all them kids. I'm trying to get them to meditate. And of course, at first, you know, teenagers, we meditate.
You gotta be quiet.
Yeah, exactly. And so then I realized too, one of the things in that first year teaching, it's like I'd always been a teacher, but not in that capacity. And so they were resistant. And so like about a month in, I just stopped doing the meditation. And so one of my students that worked my nerves was like, oh, excuse me, why we not doing meditation today? And I was like, oh, okay. So y'all way of saying y'all like is just to keep on being like, this get on my nerves. But okay, why she do that? She always talking about energy. So I found that it was like, okay, I'm going to find my way. And for me, I felt like that really brought the school community together. It got the kids excited. It allowed the parents to then come and see their children in a way that they might not have come normally. And it was like we really treated it like a high level, like black, production. You know what I mean? And it was dope. You know what I mean? And I felt that the magic came from me being able to really see into like these 12 students, like these core 12 students that I was like, I know who my main and you know what I'm saying people are, and they were so dedicated. Like the dedication was ridiculous. Like I would be like, oh, okay, rehearsal over. They'd be like, no, let's go for another hour. It's already 8 o'clock. Now
That's
I'm
like,
they like, listen, they were so into the script. I got input from them, but and ultimately they once they heard it that it was hip hop theater and it was rap, they was like, hey yo, this joint is like that. And I was like, I know what I'm doing.
right. When you allow the students to like take ownership
Yeah,
of it
yeah.
and like have a say,
Yeah.
it makes a world of difference.
Absolutely, absolutely. And what happened was originally I wanted them to write the entire script, but you know teenagers.
Yeah.
So like a couple of people, like out of the whole group, a couple of people wrote some scenes, but we had written out what we kind of wanted to happen and kind of like how do we bring these two worlds together of beauty shop and barbershop with the four girls, the four guys, and blah blah blah. And I was like, yo, we're gonna do this open mic. And so once we had the concept, and then we were running out of time. And so I was like, oh, I think we're only going to be able to do one act. And then Cornell, our student, he was like, Mama, we cannot end the play like here. And so made me push my pen and write over the weekend to complete it because I didn't want to disappoint the students. And we got that thing going and they rehearsed. They rehearsed day and night. They rehearsed. I mean, I was so happy that they received it in that way. And so for me, when I see that happen, that's why I say I'm God's conduit. I'm like, okay, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do because I feel that glow. I feel like how you just said everything goes. I really like when I know that I'm moving in alignment. I actually feel like something right here in my chest, and it feels like it almost feels like the sun beaming right here, like do 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 do. You found the orbit. You know what I'm saying? It really feels like that, and I'm like, I've never explained it that way, but that's how it feels. And for me, anytime I do anything and I get the glow right here in the spot, I know I'm in the right place. So yeah.
Yeah. It's like you have that, it's just like this, there's always some type of sign to let you know that you are walking in your purpose.
Absolutely.
And it's like different for everybody. It's just kind of like when you feel a genuine connection with different individuals, then that's when all your blessings come into order. And then moving on, like past collegiate, and then you go to, I found you at Roosevelt.
Yes.
And then I loved how you manage like students that may have been like dealing with some challenges. It's like instead of like detention, you had like a more restorative way to redirect that misguided energy. Like how did you guys come up with that?
Well, so it was a couple of different things. So it was like the organization that I was working at the time, it was pre going into the pandemic, right? So going into the pandemic, arts programming took a large suffering because most of our stuff is like in your face, you gotta be right there. And so we recognized that like trying to do stuff online was like crazy. Like, trying to like if a kid got an opportunity to be at home and like log on, because it's like we don't get that. We was getting the kids that walking by, they skipping class, they doing this, but they ain't really trying to leave school. They just really ain't involved in class right now. So what ended up happening was we were talking about peace rooms around the country, and we were playing off words, and we were like, they have these detention rooms, and we wanted to move away from detention because we knew that ISS and suspension was not changing the dynamics. Like all it did was exacerbate it, like for real. So it's like you send a kid home, they, you know what I'm saying, they come back, they still ready to fight. So it don't change the issue. If you have them in school suspension, then what they doing? Looking at a wall like they in jail, and maybe trying to do some work that they don't even have the lesson for. So like that's counterproductive, right? And while you do need to be held accountable for whatever thing that you've done, it's like, but how do we actually get to the accountability? Which is like for me, old school, when we talk in African culture, like you went and sat at the feet of the elders, and the elders waged wisdom and told you how you were going to repay the community. That's what restorative justice is supposed to do in essence. So it's really spiritual. So
Right.
before all this, they enacted it in schools. Black people was doing restorative before it was called that. It's just
Right.
that people tend to coin terms and then they get the credit for these things that people have been doing for a long time. You know what I mean? And so I was like, so when the intention room came, we were like, what if instead of there was a detention room, there's an intention room where it's like, okay, this is beyond therapy, right? Because you've got students who are like assigned to therapists. But sometimes even with that, like sometimes, or they're assigned to social workers, there's still a link missing because social workers and therapists are also under HIPAA law. So there's a certain line of things that they can talk about, can't talk about, and how they can service a student, right? So we kind of served as that in between. So it's like you got a student who's like going through something, but not necessarily, and they needed like a therapeutic space that wasn't like a client base. So it's like you come in and it's like, what's happening. And based on my audio voyant, right, I'm hearing your issue, but I'm also seeing solution based things because I'm hearing a song, I'm hearing a video, I'm hearing a thing that can serve as the median to start some healing,
Right.
to start some understanding. And I'm hearing it in my head and I'm like, okay, so let's look at J. Cole's whatever, For Your Eyes Only, right? And they looking at that, and then they're like, now they chant. Or let's look at, okay, let's get a canvas because what I'm hearing is, this, and then they get to working on it, and it's like, like powerful things were beginning to happen. But with that, when those things happen, then there also becomes pushback, right? So in school systems, because the push is how many seat hours that the kid is supposed to be in the classroom. But now they found this safe space, right? Which the school appreciates, but now it's taking kids out of class, right? So now they'd rather go to this room that gives them safe space than they would to be in the classroom.
Right.
So then it's like, oh, is it working or is the antithesis to that? But it's like, well, two things. This is how I felt in Friendship and Rosa. The two things, it's like, well, would you rather have them walk in the hallway?
Right.
You dig what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
still not be engaged or terrorizing a teacher that didn't deserve to be terrorized.
Right.
Right? Or this. But what wasn't happening was, how do we then take this therapeutic intention that we have here and then make it so that it matches in the classrooms, or that we work in tandem? Like, hey, I got these students that's in your class, right? They're disengaged. It's not to say that you are a bad teacher, because that's the first thing.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
And it's not, and they have to realize, like, it's not always the teacher.
No.
Sometimes
No.
it's like there's so many things that go on outside the classroom
Absolutely.
that they bring with them.
Right.
So I never take it personally if the kid is
Absolutely.
upset or is just not fully engaged. It's like they could be having a bad day.
Right. And on the hard part about it is, when you're standing there trying to manage 30 plus kids, you don't have the individual space to address that one issue, because you got 30 of them probably with 30 different issues. And you're trying to make your impact score. You're being watched for everything that you do. So it's like teaching becomes less about teaching and actually getting the point across. And it's more about checking a box. And that's why a lot of artists who are educators don't stay in education. Though they're good teachers, but they don't necessarily get with the structure of, like, oftentimes, and I could keep it real, because my best times in class was when I did not follow the lesson plan.
Yeah, right.
And I often deviated because I could read energy in a room. What I look like coming in a classroom trying to achieve whatever was on there, and I can clearly see that people have got things going on. It's attitudes in here. It's stuff like you could cut the energy with a knife. I'm gonna come in and overlook all that and just be like, so listen, today's lesson is, and we're gonna get this lesson.
Right. No, sometimes it's like, as a teacher, there's so many, like, hats you have to put on simultaneously.
Absolutely.
Like, you have to be the counselor. You have to be the therapist. You have to be sometimes a secondary parent.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Like, there's times where it's just like I'm looking around the room and, like, I had students just, like, tears out of nowhere, and it's just like, okay, come on, sweetie, like, come talk to me. Forget, like, the what they have us doing now, like aggressive monitoring.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like you can't. Sometimes it's like, okay, I get you want us to check everybody
Mm-hmm.
and, make sure they're on task, but it's like, okay, I have a student that's like in crisis right now. And I
Mm-hmm.
got to make sure that they're okay. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean?
Yep.
And it's just like, people don't always get that. And I agree, like sometimes when trying to fit what we do in a lesson plan is based off a template that may be best suited for like an ELA math or
Okay.
like social
Yeah.
studies.
Right. Right.
But
Right.
for like electives that is very hands on and
Right.
project based
Mm-hmm.
is not going to look the same.
Right.
And there hasn't been enough conversation on how to adapt what we do
Mm-hmm.
to how it would look in a classroom
Right.
or like the fit. I think it's like the Danielson rubric thing
Yeah,
that they're trying.
rubric.
Yeah.
And I think oftentimes too, you have like you have old school teachers, you have new school teachers, and I think I always say I feel like the best of life is some synergy between old school and new school, because I do think that there are some old school things that work. You got some master teachers who have been in classrooms forever, who know how to work a classroom, they know how to do certain stuff, and then you got some new school folks who got some innovative ideas, right? And those two energies need to come together. I was raised like that. Like I had an old school mother. You know what I'm saying? My father passed when I was young, but he was new school in a lot of ways, and he was the type to be like, if I said it, if I had an innovative idea, it's like, go do that. My mother would be like, no, you need to plan, da da da. So I lived in both of those worlds. So I was like the cautious, but like super spontaneous at the same time, because that was my fire energy. That Leo energy just kind of came forward, and I think like being inside of schools for over the past 20 some years, right? I've seen so much. Like I've seen students like literally they'd be like, you was at my elementary school and that ain't high school or graduated. And I'm like, yeah, like, and they'd be like, they remembered.
Right.
Like, and I put myself in that position. Like when I was younger, who did I remember? I remember my African American studies, African American literature teacher, because she taught me things that I could have learned nowhere else. You know what I'm saying? My acting teachers, you know what I'm saying? Because it was a place to actually explore some real, to explore some real things. The challenge a lot of times with like core teachers is that what core teachers, and I know you probably face this. I face so much judgment at schools where it's like they're like, oh, you're teaching the kids that they don't have to like that they don't have to follow the rules, that they can, that they should live. I remember one parent saying, Miss Princess is teaching the kids that all of them are going to be successful rappers, and I was like, see, no, that's
okay.
that's not what I'm doing.
No.
Not, like if you talk to any of the students, I'm not like, forget everything, follow your. But I am saying that I'm telling them that I am an example of a artist who does get paid and makes a living. I'm not rich,
right?
But
like,
I'm not.
And that people don't see that. People don't see like you can make a living doing art. It's such a you either like a starving artist,
right,
or
a celebrity,
or like somebody that's like super famous. No, this in between.
There's in between, and that's what I wanted to show. I was like, now, don't get me wrong. If you want to be a celebrity, there's a path that you can take. I've been on TV and radio, but I've not elevated to celebrity status. There's some people who know about me, some people who wouldn't even know my name. Cool, I'm okay with that. Right. And but I was trying to show the students, but if you like this and you want to make a living, there are avenues in teaching. There are avenues in your lane that you can actually make money. I'm a public speaker. I just want you to know that there is a person that lives in your neighborhood that actually makes money doing this. Like, and it ain't a joke. You know what I'm saying? And I think that for some people, I think it's like they want you to teach the students the same way because they're projecting for them where they're going to end up. And for some of them, that might be true. But because I was one of the exceptions, I know that there are more. And I teach for everyone, but I teach for the exception. Because I know there's a me and my daughter, and you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm the parent that can see those kids that it's like, had I not went and like, hey, yo, I see this for you. You know what I'm saying? They may not have even uncovered that path. And it ain't even necessarily to make sure that they become artists. I want them to have an experience within the arts that opens up whatever purpose is in their life. And if it happens to be in the arts, then that's just a double dopeness. Right. You know what I'm saying? If it happens, but I've always, since I was young, have always used the arts as a vehicle. Now, I didn't know this consciously, but I've always used the arts as a vehicle because that's how I communicate. When my daughter was young, I'm a rapper, so it was like teaching her concepts. Things would come to me like, okay, I want to teach her about the greens. The darker the green, the better the protein, and and she just like, oh, she bopping because it's just fun to her. That's just a talent that I happen to have because I'm like, what do I want her to know? What's the main idea? How can I put that? How can I put it together? How will she receive it? What's the limit?
Can we just put you on Gracie's Corner? Like people don't understand that like the music and the arts can help you learn. Like we talked as like a visual arts department ways to like integrate what we do in other classrooms. Just to help with the engagement, help to retain it, because simply just taking notes and taking a test, that's not enough.
No.
It's clearly enough. You're seeing the data, you're seeing the low test scores.
Yeah.
We have to try something new, and part of that may be is to implement what we do as creators.
Oh, absolutely. And I think about it because life, and you're younger than me, but I'm talking about like life and the way in which people retain information is so different now. And you got kids now who don't have homework at all. That like they own, like I'll be so surprised like when I'll be like, to the kids, I'll be like, where your book bag? Where your books? Like, how are you remembering whatever was taught during the day? That's why we had homework.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That's why we wrote note cards and we wrote out our notes and we highlighted stuff and we highlighted in the book. Like, so if you don't have the physical book, if you don't have the, and I've always been like, I'm one of them people, I don't have the Kindle. I need the real book. Like, I need to feel the page. I need to read the words. I need to annotate. That's just me. You know what I'm saying? Or if I don't do that, I need to have a person who is talking to me in a way that I can hear it. That's that preacher talking. That's that public speaker talking. That's that, because oftentimes students will come to me. They be like, are you a preacher? Because of my voice.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Or like people will hear my voice and they'll be like, what do you do? Because you sound like somebody.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's God. That's the God voice, whatever it is. I had this really cool spiritual moment where I had did a play at the Kennedy Center. Ooh. I think it was Joe Turner's Come and Gone. I was with the African Continuum Company, and I played Molly, right? Let's say. But anyway, I did the joint. I was at brunch like the next day, just chilling, talking to my friends. We were celebrating something, and somebody behind me was like, Princess? And I looked over and I was like, I don't know this woman at all. Like, she was like, you don't know me. I'm like, oh, good, thank you, because I hate when I forget people's names. And she was like, no. She said, I remember you from the Kennedy Center. Like, she was like, your voice. She was like, I didn't even look. She wasn't even looking at me.
Right.
She remembered my voice. That's powerful.
And I tell it to my students all the time.
That's
like,
powerful.
Your voice matters. Like, stop talking low.
Yes.
There's no point of you talking low. And absolutely. I have to even, because I also record like little kids for the online book club.
Yeah.
I was like, it's okay to speak up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Own that stuff. Take up space. And I think, especially for Black kids, because we are so inundated with telling them to be quiet. And it's like, there is and again, because as artists, we don't see noise the same.
Right.
We don't see like, we don't see it like, noise don't bother me. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like my niece out there, my daughter out there, it doesn't, it's a different type of like, because we have a different understanding of like auditory, right? And get it, yes, you got to respect certain environments and all that, but that is the reason why we've been at the table having conversations about how can schools be different so that we can get better outcomes. Now, from the top down, we know like the people who are making the decisions oftentimes at the top of the school board, in the top, the public school administration and stuff like that, they are not in the day-to-day. So they're cranking out solutions and they're cranking out initiatives that aren't vetted necessarily by students and parents and community, even though, and if it is vetted, it's a smaller percentage. Because let's think about it. At PTA meetings or PTO meetings, right? That's right, they call it PTO. At PTO meetings, who shows up? The parents of the students that don't really need to be there because they're already academically excelling. Mm-hmm. They're already involved in activities. They you know what I'm saying? It's like you preaching to the choir.
Right.
You feel what I'm saying? So it's like So how do we then maximize those efforts to grab somebody who might not normally be grabbed? Because the people who are gonna come anyway, we ain't gotta worry about them.
Right.
They're gonna come anyway because they're interested. I'm the parent that's gonna show up because I'm interested. What opportunity can my daughter get? Oh, she can be in this. Oh, okay. There's scholarship. There's this. As an artist, and I have an advantage. I know a lot about the educational opportunities. I know a lot about the artist. My daughter can get in anything she wants in the city because I'm aware. You know what I'm saying? And I'm also in agreement. I'm not like, you can't do that because I've never done that because I have actually done it. So she don't have no barrier. So she's less performative than me. I'm like, whatever you want to do, we can do. You want to go on an audition in California? We could do that if that's what you want to do. Now, if you don't want to do that, I'm not going to push you in that because that's my life. But you got the opportunity. You got two parents who are actually in the arts who can put you in position. People do it all the time. So it's okay. And I think that that's how I look at life. That's how I look at whether it's young people or adults. I'm always about if what I do can illuminate light within someone else, I've done my job. Particularly if I can use the power of my voice to say something that they can hear in a way that alarms something or awakens something in them to then move in the direction that God already purposed them to do. Then it's not me, it's me being the conduit for the thing. It's just like 10 people could tell you something at the same time, tell you the same thing. But for some reason, my voice, your voice, right, is assigned to that person. And you say that thing that somebody else said, and for some reason they can hear it.
It's weird. Don't understand why, but it's just like,
yeah, they can hear it. And I just think that I've had that experience for my own self as a child and as an adult. And so I know the power in that. So when I look back and I look at some of my mentors and the programs that I was in, those things did that for me since I was a kid. I literally just had a beautiful experience with my daughter playing in steel band. She's with the East of the River Steel Band. And we had a production and same kind of thing. I was like, oh, I got all these kids and I came in as like a theater facilitator and I was like, what play could we do? I thought back to my childhood. The first play that I did was called Who's in Rabbit's House. At that time, I did not know that this play was based off of an African Maasai folktale. Oh. Why would I have known that as a kid? I wouldn't have. The program that I was in was called Met Kids, short for Metro Kids. We used to meet at the Capitol Children's Museum that used to be on H Street. The two people who ran it was Heather Umpofo Auntie, she's passed on now, and Mustafa Majoon. Mustafa Majoon is still alive and still doing youth development work to this day, right? I remember seeing Mustafa's name on something years ago before I had my daughter. And when I had my daughter, I like met up with him and was like, oh my God, because this was my mentor in the 80s. Okay? In the first play I did, and I'm like, I was 10. You know what I'm saying? And I'm playing the rabbit in Who's in Rabbit's House. So now here I am remixing it, doing Who's in Poetic Parrot's House. My daughter's in the play. Different people are in the play, and I say, Mustafa, can you come? Because I want to show this full circle moment of how I was in your program, and part of me staying as an artist was my parents, but also was being in this program. And then I grow up and I become a parent. And then now my daughter is doing this play that impacted me so much. That was such a simple play, but it changed my life. And now I'm doing it. I said, you got to come. He comes and I just give him his flowers and just say, I want y'all to see how this stuff works. It really does. And if I'm one-on-one to stand in that, cool. And I hope that he understood like the impact that like me coming to that program had. I was the understudy, but the understudy the main character got sick. And I knew all the lines, and I had to sing, I had to rap. And back then I wasn't calling myself a rapper. Right. I wasn't calling myself a rapper. I had to sing, I had to rap, I had to learn the lines, and I took it so seriously. I knew that I took it so seriously. And I really was like, wow, he gave me my first lead role that let me know, like, I could do this. And I continued to do that. So because I had that actual experience. I'm not talking from a place of like theory. I'm talking from a no, I was the kid. You know what I'm saying? I was the kid in the classroom who went to the after school program, who the after school program impacted me, and now I'm doing it. I was that kid.
What was his reaction when you
Oh,
invited him?
oh my God, he was. I found him on LinkedIn because we had lost contact, and I said he was totally like. I said, hey, I would love. I don't know if you can come, but I would love it if you can. He said, absolutely, absolutely. And he was. I didn't even know he was there. He was sitting in the back and came, and I think that he was pleased. I think I remember when Heather was alive, I saw her in Busboys and Poets, and I was like, I was in your program. I was in that kid. I was in that kid. And I was like, at tears. And she was like, oh my God, you're so beautiful. She was like, you do these programs and you don't know what happens to the kids and you don't know where they end up because, just the
Right.
cycle of the system. I can only imagine to get that confirmation 20 years later that you made a difference. God, I would feel that. And I was just like, I just want you to know I'm an actress. I'm like, I'm a performer. And she was just like, oh my God. So I think her and Mustafa were very much like, we did the thing.
Yeah.
We did the thing.
And it's always like that always motivates me.
Yeah.
Because like when you are teaching art, like the arts content, you don't know what will stick or how it would impact others.
Absolutely.
I'm fortunate enough, like in the age of Instagram, I still have like my former students
Yes.
that stay in contact to let me know like what they're majoring in or what they're going to do.
Absolutely.
I just had one of my students, Jawan, because he asked me to interview me for his project.
What?
So
now that's super dope.
and I was like, I'm so proud of him because it's like I know that he always wanted to do communications.
Yes.
But he was also on the football team, so he couldn't stay after school. He could only do my class.
And that's always hard when it's a sports person.
Yeah. But it's like he stuck with it. So with camera gear, I still help him out time to time. You know what I mean? And I was just like, I even told him about the studio. He's like, I want to come here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's just like that always is like, it's kind of corny, but they always like say like, just remember your why.
Yeah.
And then it's like it does help because
it does.
You know what I mean?
And I will say like I'm so grateful because I have had so many giving your flowers while you're still alive moments. I will get random like you said Instagrams, like a girl that I was that went to Blue, but then she came to Easter. She was just like, I want you to know you kept me alive. Like for real. Like, and you just don't know the impact that you had. You said something really important that I think that I want to stress to like Black people and educators, especially for Black women in education. You do not know the power that you hold and who you show up as. What I realized with particularly like a lot of Black girl students, I reminded them so much of I was different, but I reminded them a lot of their mothers, a lot of their aunts, grandmothers, the women in their life that they may have had issues with or clashes with. And I'm showing up in the classroom demanding something of them, expecting something of them, and I'm not wrong, but I have to realize how they might see me. You know what I mean? And I was like, Black women hold multiple faces and personalities, in particular inside of an education built inside of a school building, and it ain't fair. Oh, it ain't fair because we get it like real hard, and I really think that that's something that we need therapy for,
Right.
like that because you go through so many I don't even want to say depressions, but like many things to it because like we're human. Like
right, it weighs on you.
It weighs on you.
Heavy.
You think about like if you get into it with a student or if something's going on with them. I know because I'm a sex assault survivor. Any student that talked to me or entrusted me about like sexual assault, I'm ready to blaze on whoever done did something to them. And like hard to separate yourself from those moments. And so I had to learn how to not really separate because, compartmentalize, but to understand it's like, they teach you in the youth development, don't be attached to the outcome, right? Don't be attached, even though, you pray for the outcome, you don't be attached to it because you might just be, a passerby in the process, right? You are necessary for their process, but you might not see the whole thing, right? Because you might only be at that school 1 year, they might only be at that school 1 year, but did they have a transformative experience while there? My thing is that in if you come into my sphere, my space, I don't care what I'm doing, whether I'm driving Uber or Lyft, whether I'm performing, when you come into my energy, is there some type of transformative experience that happens? And it could be one word, one sentence, one exchange, but you always, as Will Smith says, that leave people better than you found them. And I know that's what I lead with. Like, that's my intention. Whoever I'm around, like, that's the point. Because I don't want to take space with anybody that I'm not adding value to. You know what I'm saying? I don't. Why would I do that? That I'm just in your space to be in your space.
Right. No, that's a waste of time. It's like, we're here to do something and make some change.
Absolutely.
And it is very draining. And I even like struggle sometimes to try to like turn it off. Because it almost is like almost like law enforcement a little bit, because it's just like you're always on call.
You are. You are.
What I mean?
And they, like I said, that's where the old school teachers and old elders are very instrumental, because they see that with new school people, where like their heart is so in it. And it is hard to turn off. And even though they be like, don't take calls from students, don't give students your personal number, don't take calls after such and such time, right? But like compassion and empathy says, okay. But if you see the number, especially they call like 2, 3 in the morning.
It's like, yo,
are you okay?
Like,
what's wrong?
Like,
you know what I mean? Like, what you need?
Yeah.
Because you always imagine you never want to be the person who didn't answer. And they needed,
because that will haunt me more.
It will haunt me, and so you try to find the balance. Some days I would just be like, okay, today I'm cutting off at a certain time, right? But then I might have other days where I have open hours, or I'll tell my students lovingly, like, hey, if this is something that can wait until tomorrow when I get there, if it can't, let me know.
Right.
But you know what I'm saying, like those type of things. But again, working in the inner city and working with kids, like, again, these standards that they have us to do, like, don't intermix with kids and don't, like those rules, sometimes they're in place for safety.
Right.
But if we're real, most of the impact that happens is when there is some bending to those rules. You know what I'm saying? And unfortunately, like I said, it just depends on what environment you're in. Some people, they'll carry that out. I go with my spirit. Like, whatever God say, even if it's against the rules, it's God is going to protect me, because I am leading with light. I am leading with good intention. I am leading with those things. So I can't. There's no way to be struck down for that when you are leading with, leading with light. So you're going to be protected. Yeah. So, I look at it like that. And because it's like we do what we love, and when you do what you love, you don't work a day in your life, but you also, like, you get to experience what real joy feels like, looks like, and I think we all humanistically want that. You know what I'm saying? But we don't necessarily always know the path to get it. And sometimes we forget it. And as adults, we forget, even with all our knowledge and training and whatever. But when we in that moment, we forget. And so, like I was saying to my sister the other day, and I was like, I've had this mantra now where it's like, life is about remembering, forgetting, and remembering. Sometimes we live an experience, we go through it or whatever, and then we forget the power of the spiritual powers at hand. We forget the power of the universe. We forget the power of God. We forget that, and then we have to have experiences that then remind us and lead us back to, like, oh, I know that, oh, wow, this is. And so, I've just been lucky that, like Naeem Akbar says, that you structure your life so that you're constantly reminded of who you are. People like you, like I'm never, we can't forget, because I see you at other places. We're connected by students. I got things on my wall. Like, I got the friendship stuff on my wall. So it's constantly around me, that even when I forget, You know what I'm saying? And my friend Kaniki, she said recently, she said, God doesn't forget your prayers even if you do. So all the things that we have prayed for and manifested and this and that and the third, even if we in a down moment, the universe not like, oh, you down right now so you can't get it. It's like, oh, we're still working.
Yeah.
We're still, the forces are still working. So I that's the joy in life, for me. And my goal, my prayer every day is to experience a little bit more of that joy.
Yeah. Just take some time for yourself, you know what I mean? Because you can't really walk in your purpose if you're not taking care of yourself. And
Absolutely.
I kind of learned that the hard way.
Oof.
Like, you know what I mean? When you have that mental breakdown,
Yes.
and it's just like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Something's got to change.
Yeah.
And it was an adjustment for me to kind of cut back my hours. Like, I used to be the type of person that, okay, I'm going to have my club every day, and I'm not leaving till 6. And then I'm also going to cover this game, and then other stuff on the weekend. And then that burnout hits.
Absolutely.
And it hits hard.
Hardcore.
So like this school year, I was like, okay, we're just gonna meet 2 times a week.
Right, boundaries.
You know what I mean? And then I'm fortunate enough to have an intern. Shout out to Benji. That's like going to help cover the games instead of like me keep going.
Delegating.
You know
Delegating.
What I mean? So it's like, don't be afraid to reach out for help and not to put everything on your plate.
Oh,
because,
absolutely.
It's not fair to you.
Oh no, absolutely. Look, that when we reconnected, that was one of my main things because like I've been fortunate. I'm like, and I tell you this all the time. I know dope Black women, so like I never forget y'all. Like I'll be like, oh Flo, like I'm like she's dope. Like you know what I'm saying? Like it's just dope for no reason. And so I just be like, I just am fortunate. I really know a lot of people. So I can pick up the phone and be like, so hey, now I can't do this. Oh, I don't know how to do this, but look, this is what I'm thinking. This is my vision. This is it. And I'm fortunate also that people kind of get me. Because I know for some people, I could probably be a little overwhelming, especially because I'm the type that's like, I'm about to leave you a 11-minute voice note. Like, this is my vision. Oh my God, I just saw it. What you think about this? And you just happen to be the type of person that can understand that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Somebody else be like, girl, if you don't leave me alone. I've been fortunate that most of the time I do what I say, and people have seen the results of when I say, listen, I'm trying to do this, or I'm aiming to do this, and they like, whatever you're trying to do, I'm gonna help you because they have seen me work. And I tell my daughter, this is so important about how you develop your work ethic. I was like, I was like, I'm not always at 100%, but I've done enough in the universe that when I do need, and I can pick up the phone and somebody be like, yes, absolutely, I'll work with you. They'll give me a discount. I'm not asking for that, but they understand and they know. You know what I'm saying? Everybody can't get that. Everybody, and so I don't take that for granted.
Right.
But that burnout, like you said, that's why I'm still teaching myself, but the burnout can be very, very real. And it's like that's why now the stuff I'm not smart at, I don't even try to learn how to do it.
Right.
I try to figure out if I don't have the money right at this moment, how do I get the money to get the person who is smart in that area to do that? Because I don't got time.
Right.
But I know I need this thing done, so I'm gonna pay for it to get done easier. That's just it. Leave it at that rather than I used to do plays where I would be like concession supervisor. I'm in the play. I'm doing that.
It's too much.
It's too much. And then the art suffers because I'm not even rehearsing enough because I'm thinking about, okay, when we go to break, I gotta go out here and make sure they got the wine price right and da da da. And I'm not even thinking about my character.
Right.
Like so I definitely feel like particularly, Black woman, like the PTSD, post-traumatic super Black woman syndrome, right? And I was like, we need to get rid of that, and that's why I do the work that I do. We need to get rid of that and understand that, we really, it, like I said, it does take a village. And I know that, and I'm grateful that God has given me such the village of supportive. My parents have passed away, but I still have so many like supportive people that when I make a move, they trust in it, they believe me, they support me. And so I don't have that thing, whatever people say, like I know that there's crabs in a bucket and this and there are probably people who don't like me, but I don't know who they are.
Right.
Ain't my business.
You don't keep them in your circle.
No, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know who they are.
Right.
And for me, so I don't be looking around like, oh, I can't do something because there's crabs in a bucket.
Yeah.
I don't see that.
Yeah.
I understand
You
it,
did.
but I don't see it.
I feel like that's kind of like shifting because what
Mm-hmm.
I've kind of noticed with connecting with a lot of people in the blurred community,
Mm-hmm.
that crab in the barrel mentality
Mm-hmm.
is being slowly erased. I'm not
Yeah.
saying it's completely gone, but
Yeah,
there's just
yeah.
a lot of people that want to, oh, you do this?
Yeah.
You're actually good. Let me put you in this circle. Let me
Absolutely.
connect you with
Mm-hmm.
so and so.
I think that speaks to your spirit.
Yeah.
I think that because I like I said, when people describe those types of things, I'm like people who say they have haters. What?
What? Like,
I'm not aware if the person is a hater, they ain't making themselves. I don't know anything about it,
Right.
because I also am not concerning myself with that, because most of the time I'm so enthralled with whatever work that I'm doing, and then I'm my own, as you say, your own worst critic. So I'm already like, how do I sharpen myself? How do I get better myself? I'm not blaming nobody. I'm like, if I mess up on something, I know God is like, so Slim. So check this out. That stuff you doing, like I don't necessarily need nobody to correct me, because, well, number one, my sister circle is tight.
Yes.
And they will hold me accountable, but I'm already hold myself accountable.
Right.
Like I'm the first one to be like, okay, yeah, God trying to send me a message, trying to say something. Okay, all right, like, dang, okay, what I do, what I ain't listen to,
Right.
what did I mess up on, or whatever. So I just think that, but I definitely feel you. Like, in the community, I feel like we got so many dope. I feel like we have a lot of dope people, and because I'm so inspired, when I see people and I see us winning, it does not have to be me personally.
Right.
What your success just allows me to know more that of what I can do and what is being done. And I think that that's the history that we need to be teaching.
Right.
Because my daughter needs to see in books, oh, Flo, you know what I'm saying, national leader of the Blurs, blah, blah, blah. Like, you know what I'm saying? For her to be like, because like I said, she need to get with you, because she is so into anime. I did not come up on that. So this is a new era
As
of.
soon as she saw the space, the studio space, she was like, I don't want to leave.
Right.
I went, like, this is like, she's in heaven right now.
Exactly. And so for me, understanding that, even though it's not, and this is where elders have to, it's not my background, because I don't watch anime. I don't be knowing what's going on. I don't know the things, but I know somebody who do. Guess what? She come over here. I don't feel personal about that. I'm like, you would be able to introduce her to something. Like, when she be telling me the stories, I'll be like, oh, okay. But I don't know what she's talking about. You know what I mean? But when she she probably get around other blurs and be like, oh my God, Ma, this is my lane. Like, you know what I'm saying? And it's so good to feel like you're in a tribe of people that are like you. So, like, when you talk about stuff, nobody thinks it's weird. Nobody thinks, because they all on the same, they all on the same stuff. So for me as a mom, I'm like, I share my daughter with my community, in the sense of, you might have something for her. You might have something for her that I don't possess. And I'm not so egotistical to say, well, she's only going to thrive by what I give her, because that's just not real.
Right.
It's just not real. I had to do that with myself, with the things how she's different from me. Like, she's got traits from her father. Not only does she have traits from her father, she has traits from her friends. Right. She has traits from environment, and then how she just came here. And I buck up against it sometimes, but I get it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But I get it, and I just tell myself, okay, all right, another lesson to learn. So I'm in a space now where, like I said, I still run myself a little too much. I still do. I'm still learning to really slow down. But I am hearing the signs more clearly, so that I don't just boom hit the wall and be like, okay, shut down and flatline, and then come back. You know what I mean? So I'm learning to get better about that. And then I just want to be that example for other Black girls and for other Black women, to be like, I don't want anyone to think, while we are magic, I don't want them to think this is magic, right? Like, the magic is really, you started with this question, right? You was like, what's the magic, right? The magic is understanding who you need, what you need to create the environment to make things happen. I was able to make magic at every place that I've gone, not because of just my spirit times the support, the soul and the spirit that was already there, and I was just able to see, oh, no, 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 me too, no, 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 the principal support, no, 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 like I was able to see the people in the space to be able to say, this is what I need. All the black women in history who have done something amazing, when I looked at their team of people, I was like, how were they able to do this thing? Like, weren't they tired? Weren't they this? Weren't they that? You know what I'm saying? What you call it? Ida B. Wells. When I
Right.
read, I was like, Ida B. Wells had 4 kids. How did she travel? How did she protect these kids? She was married. I was like, where was her husband? Her husband was also a speaker, right?
Right.
But she traveled with her sister and a nurse. Oh,
So
okay, that's why. Because I was like, okay, the first thing I'll be thinking about was who babysitting the kids. Because if as a black woman, I'm a mother, but I'm also like a mother to the community. My first thing is, you see my daughter right here,
yeah.
right? You see what I'm saying? I'm like, who watching the kids? Because that's going to be a stressor. That's going to split my energy if I'm not sure how safe my kid is while I'm out here also ministering and serving the community. It's a stressor. So I was like, we have to stop presenting it like, I woke up like this.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
And that's a fair point,
yeah.
because it's like we don't always think about the team a lot of these famous icons had with them. You know, we just kind of just focus on them themselves. But
Yeah.
it's just like there's always had somebody to be watching their back. There always had to be somebody
Yeah.
that was like putting them in the spaces
Yeah.
to get things done.
Done.
Like I never really thought about it like that.
Yeah, no, I mean that's something that I always thought about, because when you hear like the different gurus speak, and I'm always mindful of, and this is no diss to men, but I'm always mindful of like when men put out books about productivity and like how they do stuff, and they be like, oh yeah, focused on this and laser focus and da 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 da, and I'll be like, do these mamas got kids? Like, and I'm not saying that it can't be done. I'm saying somebody getting ignored.
Right.
Okay, that's all. And so, and as a woman, I'm looking like, you know, I'm like, okay, I'm not saying some of this can't happen, but you got to adapt that, because I could be over here laser focused and my kid tapping, and I'm like, okay, you know, I have to have those times where I'm there for her, and then also for the work. Shonda Rhimes said, listen, if you see me winning with my kids, that means I'm not doing scripts as much. If you see me winning with the scripts, that means my kids are getting ignored. Somewhere something's happening,
right.
but nobody's telling that story. So I don't like the story of selling to us when we see each other in these fabulous ways. And it's like, it's the highlight reel.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's the highlight reel. It's like, yes, look, I amassed this success, but to the degree that I done messed up my relationship with my kids, to the degree that I have messed up my health, to the degree. So you too can amass this success. What are you willing to? There's going to be a sacrifice, and I want you to understand the sacrifice that rather than you just looking at, I just came up. You know what I'm saying? And those who have had the support, it's like I look at DeVale Ellis and Kadeen Ellis. Love them as a couple, but they amass success because Mama, Kadeen's mama lives in the house. So they don't ever have to worry about their children.
Right.
And that is, so when you are a woman business owner, when you can have the relief, they have their whole family involved in making sure the kids are taken care of so that they can go, you know what I'm saying, so they can fly. And now they making the money for, they can take everybody in this and the third. But the backdrop of it was, you know what I'm saying, the parents being there to support, that. So when I look at that, what makes me like people more in their success is that I can see the type of system or the type of support that they have, and it's transparent. So and they're saying to them, like, this is not magic. Like, this happens, like, we have to address this, we have to address this. Yo, our kids are in better position now, but guess what? Somebody made a racist comment at the school. We still got to go address that. We still being reminded of being black. We da 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 da. So it's like, okay, they talked about that they had challenges within their marriage. Like, when you have that type of transparency where then people can say, they can really see themselves inside of you and understand that anybody that we admire somewhere has some weaknesses, some pitfalls. Who don't?
Right.
Our major leaders, when I look at like a Martin Luther King and this and the third, typically people who are like out front leading, they have some type of addiction, right? Sex addiction, alcoholism, drugs, some type of vice.
Mm-hmm.
And when you think about it, it makes sense, right? When you are heavily responsible for you're heavily influential around a lot of people, right? How do you counter that, right? When you are in your quiet of quiet, when you are in your, how do you shoulder that? Now, do you have a support system? You might have a support system, and so it makes me think. Okay, now I see why some people who are in the limelight, they might have this issue or they have that issue, or people who have taken their lives, and they be like, how could they? They had so much. They had this, and it's like, yeah, but they didn't have that peace. They didn't have that intention. They didn't have that quiet space. They didn't have that. So I think that the way I stay sane is to stay honest as much as I can, even when sometimes I probably overshare. I'd rather be an oversharer than not.
Right.
I'd rather people know too much about me, so that if and when I was in any type of trouble, people would know to come versus not know at all, because I'd spend too much time trying to make it look like it's magic. I'm like, the magic is within the space. You know what I'm saying? And so, yeah, so that's how I feel.
So is that the reason why that you decided to write a book and design a curriculum
Yeah.
to address this very issue?
Absolutely. My life has been such a teaching tool for me. And then having my daughter is another teaching tool for me. See, I thought parenting was all about output, but in reality, no. God gave me the daughter because it's a lot of stuff that I was missing within myself. You know what I'm saying? Good.
Oh, sorry,
Okay.
no.
Okay. It's like something flying. It's an ancestor in here, y'all. Yeah. It's an ancestor in here. So I pivoted because I pivoted for two reasons. One, well, the work had already been in motion. I sat with myself, and because I had been doing so much work around Black women and girls and mother-daughter relationships, and then having a daughter, and then having my mother pass. And when my mother passed, I think there was like a pinnacle moment of like, well, this whole time I've been trying to prove something to my mom, and now she's passed. What do I do with it? And then, so there was a lull period of like, maybe there's nothing left to do. And that's like insane. It's like, your purpose is over? Because I feel like when you feel like your purpose is over, you die.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, no, God said you were living to the age of 120. So clearly we're not done. So what's next now? So with the book and the curriculum, and like really taking on this whole new movement, it was like, I am going back to not my childhood. I'm going back to, we just celebrated Lauryn Hill's Miss Education album, making it to the top of Apple's, or as the number one album of all time. That feat alone is something that ain't no small thing.
Right.
And not that we need anybody's validation, but just because it was, and this is the only national studio album that she made. The other one was unplugged. Let's look at, why is that album number one?
Right.
And it transformed my life. It transformed my life because it wasn't just an album. The same way we talked about how Black women hold so many spaces, Lauryn Hill was our mama, our aunt, our cousin, our sister, our teacher, our counselor, all on the Miss Education album. She dropped gems, she dropped healing stones, and she acted as God's conduit to the people. It changed so many of us. That album meant so much because it wasn't just an album.
Right.
It was a education system. Hence the title, the title cover, and it's a desk etched in a desk, because she basically based it off the miseducation of the Negro, right? And so I'm like, oh, this is, I knew this, but now I know it in a different way. And I'm like, yo, the re-education of Black girls is where I want to, is my thing is that we need that education. Black women need it. Black girls need it, because the decisions that we make are so powerful. Obviously, we're leaders. obviously we have impact and influence, which also means that with with great influence comes great responsibility, right? To whom much is given, much is required. I know that if I have the ability to impact someone, I can impact them positively or negatively, depending on what's in my brain, depending on what's in my spirit and soul. I have a responsibility that when I speak, to be clear that I am saying what I know to be, what I truly know to be truth, what I know to be of help and service. And if I'm not sure, I better get clear because I can impact too many people. And I can take a lot of people down with me. I'm born August 9th, the day of psychological influence and psychological leverage. And so me and Whitney Houston born the same day. And my particular year is about artistic psychological leverage. I'm born on the day of artistic psychological leverage. Baby, that ain't by no mistake. You know what I'm artistic psychological leverage? Okay. And so in developing now this wave of turning the corner, I was like, I want to build out the things that we've been talking about. Everything that we've seen in schools, like what happens is that we see it, but then we get burnt out. We go another way. We may not talk about it no more. We may talk about it amongst the, but we are not creating the systems, right? So for me, I was like, how do I take what I know, what I've seen, what I've experienced, and then put it in a form where people can get that. Okay, so some people need it in workbook. They need it in a book or workbook, right? Because that's they gonna go to that. Some people need it in the album in music, right? Some people need it in a tour form where you're going, speaking, where you're coming around and speaking to them, and it hits them that way. We are a multifaceted people in how we receive information. And while they tell you to hone down, I've always fought myself with how to say I'm one thing, right? I know that I use the arts to speak, right? But so it's speaking. It's like when I use my voice, I know that that's the thing. It's when I say royal voices because my daughter's middle name is Royal. But what I'm saying is that whatever is coming from here, right? And so I know that whenever I use my voice, that's that power, right? So for me, writing, when I wrote my Bars Heal Scars, I wrote it, and then I wrote it from the concept in my head. I should have had like an editor and all that stuff. I didn't have that, but so I self-published with publishing company Great Publishing. And so then I said, let's turn the corner on that, right? Let's turn the corner on that. And what if I have videos that are teaching tools, you know what I mean? And there's like this intersection of like, all the things that I love. Like I love Prince EA and the hip hop preacher and Sarah Jakes Roberts and Iyanla Van Zant and Oprah, and like I love all this like cornucopia of people, and I'm like, because to me they're lyricists, even though they don't like Sarah Jakes Roberts. I love her. Like the reason why I like if I wasn't like I'm not I don't claim I claim spiritual more so than religious, but Sarah Jakes Roberts talks about the Bible in a way that would make somebody who don't know nothing about God, because she sit there and be like, let me tell you about how Mark was petty, and let me tell you about, and I'll be like, oh, I could bang with you. I'll be like, I could bang with you because she is making it common language. That is what audio voyant is, right? So she could read the Bible. Like I could sit and listen to her talk about the Bible all day, and I wouldn't listen to nobody talk about the Bible.
Right.
But because she makes it, she like, let me tell you the tea, girl. Right. So the tea was that Samson had so and so, and it's just the way that she presented it that made me be like, listen, I'll go get my notebook on this one. And I feel like, my homegirl was helping me the other day. She said, okay, let me hear what you're saying so I can help you figure out what you're doing. And she says, so you're like Lauren because you engage creatives. She was like, you're like in Iyanla because you empower creatives, right? And then she's like, you're like Harriet because you was influence or something creatives, right? So she's like, you're a creative liberator, right? And I always say in my tagline, I heal, empower, amplify, activate, and liberate. And she said, well, if you say heal, people are going to be looking for letters behind your name. I was like, well, maybe, you know. And she's like, there's a lot of people in power, right? She was like, but liberate. She's like, having that, you know, that part of being, you know, you. So I think for me, that was why I'm like, that's why I'm on the move that I'm on now. Because if Lauren was one, like, this album was 26 years ago.
Right. And it's still relevant today.
It's still relevant, but why is there only one? That to me is part of I grew up in an era where we had a selection. Now we're just getting around to now having more female rappers.
Right.
When I grew up, Queen Latifah, Lil Kim, Foxy Brown, Eve, Lauryn Hill, Bahamadia, Jean Grey came after. I can name, like, there was so many girls that, so every girl could probably try to find something to identify. Lauren is super special because she was like what they were, like Liz Estrada. Like, she represented all of these different things. So that's why my movie is Chirac with the Spike Lee joint, because Liz Estrada in that joint, she brought the hoes, the elders, the bougie women, like, all together under one premise, right? My premise is about Black girl and women leadership, right? And their purpose, right? So we can come together on that, because I don't care where you came from, right? I don't care if you got 10 boyfriends, you're asexual, whatever the case may be. Like, we can agree on. Can we agree on that if we empower or liberate Black women and girls and educate them with the things that are really important, that it is important for them to, like, shine their light? If we can agree on that, we don't got to agree on nothing else, because that's the premise. Now, my job is to artistically leverage that. And so the book, the tour, everything is all about the re-education of Black girls to take away. So instead of the miseducation, now it's the re-education. Sometimes we gotta say, well, what we thought we needed to be educated on, because Mama always said, get your education, baby. You get your education, and that is true.
But it's like, what are you learning? What
So
is the training?
So what we just have to ask. So they got the old school got it right. Education is absolutely important, but what education? What do we need to be? What do we actually need to be educated on that is going to further us as women, as girls, that is going to put us in alignment with our divine purpose and going to make us be a light in this world? Teach that first and foremost. And then if we want to learn about Shakespeare and all that other stuff,
right,
then that's there, because now we have this foundation and base. And I'm using that because my daughter's in an African-centered school. I knew that if I put her in public school first, by third grade, they say this, third grade, Black girls will have a identity crisis, because they have been taught mostly by white women in schools, and they will begin to look at them. If they do not have a Black teacher, a Black female teacher, by the time they're in third grade, their identity, their self-worth, all of that stuff diminishes, because they don't have that. And it triples when they do.
That's so interesting, because I think all my life I've had, like, a Black teacher, even from, like, pre-K, kindergarten, all of elementary school, middle, high school. Like, I've always had either it was like a Black woman or a Black man teaching.
Yeah.
So it's just like, I don't think I ever lost the sense of my Blackness.
Yeah.
There was always a conversation about, like, race and how it's played. And even in D.C. as a liberal city, we don't really encounter those, like, level of discrimination.
Yeah.
But I've always had that Black culture. We had teachers that went to HBCUs. We had teachers that are in fraternities and sororities, the Divine Nine. And, like, that know how to cook, that would bring food that was seasoned, and
the potato salad gonna be yellow.
Yeah. You know what I mean? That bring the food, that understand like the language, and that is not necessarily threatening, but it's just like that's just how they talk. That is, that sense of culture. But I never
Absolutely.
had to think about it because I always had it.
Right. And I think about it like because like again, this was my real experience. I was born in the Chocolate City in 78, right? So for 10, 11, 12 years, I was in DC with black teachers. I was in honor roll, honor society, this and the third. I had black teachers. Then my father and mother got divorced. My father died and we moved to North Carolina. We were living in the hood, right, in North Carolina, in Jacksonville, North Carolina. And I went to go test at this school that, was, we lived in the hood, but we went to the school and they put you in levels. Like, so based on your testing level, you were either in the Stars, the Bears, or the Voyagers, which meant below average, average, or above average. I didn't know that at the time. Going into that was like a culture shock because one, I ain't never really been to school with white people. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I had never like, you know what I'm saying, the most that I seen, is like out in an event, but like nothing, right? So going into that environment, and then I'm getting on the school bus, and the kids like, oh, what's up, new girl? Oh, what team you on? The Stars or the Bears? And I pull up my little paper, and I'm like, I'm on the Voyagers. And they like, the Voyagers? Like that don't even match.
Right.
Like how you live in the hood and you go like you should be one of them rich black people because if you're not one of the rich black people, how you on the Voyagers, right? And I was one of those phenomenons that's like, yeah, my parents' finances might not have matched the level of my education level or my intelligence level. However, you know what I'm saying? And so here we go. I get to school and I'm not in school with the people that I live with. And then this is when I start to understand classism, right? That okay, there's rich black people. You know what I'm saying? Right. Oh, they live in different neighborhoods. They black, but they don't live over here.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so even when you speak about like people, go to HBCUs, like, and it's like, yeah, we black, absolutely. However, I still recognize that my daughter has a different experience than my students, right? Like we black, we live in Cheverly, Maryland. I had to search for the black people, not because I wasn't trying to be somewhere, but I was trying to be, I was definitely trying to be in an area where I ain't hear gunshots every day.
Right.
But I also, you know what I'm saying? So it's like that dichotomy or whatever. So I say all that to say that I recognize when I had that experience at the school that I was like, and then I'm in these classes where they're like, oh, you only have one advanced class or one AP class. You don't, oh, all of your classes aren't AP? Well, I ain't even know that I didn't know this was a thing. But so that's when the classism started coming in, and I had a real experience going to these different events. And I remember I didn't know how to do place settings. I'd never been to a fancy thing. And so I was sitting next to a rich black woman with her daughter, and she was like, use this fork, use this. Like, she was kind of whispering it to me because I didn't know. I didn't know. And I just think that it's also too much pressure and dumb. Like, pick up a fork and eat. Yeah. Like, who got time for all that? But those are the things. And so learning that, I understand that we need curriculums. We can't run away from it. We have to be a part of it. And we just got to find our lane. For me, hip hop theater, public speaker, this lane is for me. I am the Lauren, the Iyanla and the Harriet,
Right. All wrapped into one.
Together. And I accept that. And I don't think there's a woman on the planet that does what I do, not in this way. And so because of that, there's a heavy need and a heavy layer. So that's why I'm working on. So there's a lot of people who can get their breakthrough if I break through with this. So that's why so that was where the shift was for me, was trying to find a way to like comprehensively move the needle forward, so that when I do pass, that this is the legacy that I've left, that it stands for something for my daughter and future children, right? It stands for something for my students, and it stands for something for my sisters and brothers that I have, encountered, that, that I lived my purpose, that I live my purpose. And yeah, I'm excited to embark on this thing. And my goal, hopefully, I mean, one day, prayerfully, Lauren will get to see the curriculum and understand, like, if she could understand. I mean, I hope she does understand the impact, but I would like to be able to sit with her, and I want this interview to be set, because I want to sit, like, when we're gonna call that into existence. When I sit down with Lauren Hill, I'm gonna say I did an interview with my homegirl Flo, and I told her that I cannot wait for the day that I sit with Lauren to say, your miseducation inspired this whole curriculum, this whole movement, and look at how it's successful. If you don't know how powerful God's energy in you is, I want to confirm that for you while you live it. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So I feel like I'm calling that energy up, because I've seen Lauren in concert. I've been close to her, but I haven't had the opportunity to ever meet her personally and talk to her. And I wanted to write her when she was in jail, but I didn't. I wanted to, and she publicly acknowledged a lot of people who wrote her. And so I missed that opportunity, but I've sent her messages and stuff. And you never know if celebrities get
Yeah.
those messages or whatever. But and for me, it's more about the fact that it's just so powerful to be able to tell someone that by you living in your purpose, that you liberated me and so many other people, not just women, I mean men, and like everybody around the entire world. Please clap for yourself, and know that you did God's work, and you should be able to let them leave you alone. I mean,
Right.
and yes, and so that's the thing. I want to just be able to say that to her. You
Yeah, and
know.
just to get that seal of approval from Lauren Hill,
Mhm.
like I'm pretty sure everybody will be on board with the curriculum.
Yeah.
When you first brought it to me, I was like, it was perfect timing, because what I kind of noticed that in our schools, we
Mhm.
do emphasize like going to college
Yep.
and like, preparing them for the real world, but we
Mhm.
don't have conversations about social emotional intelligence.
Right.
And it's just like, well, we don't know why the kids are acting crazy. It's
Right.
like you
Right.
don't address like
Mhm.
the source of it all. We
Right.
don't teach them like, how to read the room or like to
Mm.
code switch. We have to say, hey, you need to code switch, but
Mhm.
we
Ooh,
don't
could
show
you
them.
imagine that being a class? Reading the room would be a wonderful
I
class.
mean, I'm saying, I'm just like,
Yes.
it would minimize
Mhm.
so much of the drama and the situations
Absolutely.
that we had
Mhm.
if we focus on the social aspect. Like, we have
Mhm.
advisory,
Yeah, but
but
it's taken away. Like, it's not long enough. Like, I think that's the thing too. I think that the initiatives that, particularly in DC, but across the board, right? There are initiatives, but they're like a check a box. They're like, we did SEL for 20 minutes, 40 minutes, when actually that should be more of it, and the other classes should be smaller
right.
and shorter. Because I just think that when you said read the room, it made me think of a class that I took in at UDC, my alma mater, and it was a class called Processes of Communication. And it was the dopest class because it was about reading the room. It was about nonverbal, verbals and nonverbal communication. And there was a whole couple of chapters on how to walk into a public place and read what might be happening. Two people who are having an argument, somebody who's in love, somebody who's frustrated with their job, like reading like body signals. And all of this is about voyancy. It's all about clairvoyancy, audio voyancy, everything that you could see, right? And hear. And I was like, but and already being in theater, this is already a thing that I'm already interested in, because we already doing character study. We got to go outside and study the person and move how they move, and why thinking how they think and what they're doing. So this was just like another level of theater to me. But I definitely feel like, ooh, could you have read the room? I've always said, before we start giving grades, if let's say the first quarter was social emotional classes, before we, like, it's pass fail for that first quarter, and we have read the room, we have effective communication, public speaking, like things that are going, that we can use to then then master these other areas of like math and you know what I'm saying, stuff like that. We might have not even Ebonics 101, but like, you know what I'm saying, like you said, code switching. You know what I mean? Like what, you know what I'm saying, what these things mean, because a lot of times, shoot, like languages adopting so fast, emojis and all that, like half the emoji, I'm like, what is that? What does that mean?
Right.
You know what I mean? Because kids change the language every day, and then they be knowing like it was 10 years old, and you be like, well, when did that change? Because I thought we was still on like, this word. Now we're
Right.
on another word. You know what I mean? I think that if we would see a shift in grades if we focused at least one quarter, possibly two, but at least one quarter on social emotion. I say seed, even though they say SEL. I say social emotional arts and academic development, right? Because I was like, arts has to be in there, just like how they say STEAM. Arts has to be in there because arts is the lyricist. You know what I'm saying? Arts is the lyricist and the linguist to the initiatives that people want. So when you take it out, you take away the power of it actually being replicated in a system. You know what I'm saying? You take away that power. So it's like you have to put it in there and say, well, they said, well, why do you have to have the arts? Because it's the way it's communicated. You want it known by the masses? You want it, what you want, then the arts has to be there. It has to be a artistic aspect that people can pick up on, that we can see vividly, all of those things. We have to have that. And so I'm just like, so the re-education of black girls, and women, like it's a seed experience. It's a seed curriculum. It is a seed movement, and this way I don't have to limit myself and say I'm this or that. I am this and that. I am a performing artist. I am an educator. I am God's conduit, which may read as a healer, a spiritualist, or whatever. You know what I'm saying? I am a person who inspires purpose, personal development, and wellness, self awareness, self actualization. So now I don't have to limit it because it's still all in the same, vein. But like I said, my homegirl, she like, but now it's under this umbrella.
Right.
And so I'm excited to be on a journey, to have a person who has seen it, in its phases. You know what I'm saying? Because y'all will be the people to be able to say, when the naysayers, or if there are naysayers, because I don't know them, but like when people will be like, oh, this seemed like it was overnight. And, Flo can be like, no, girl,
Oh,
so
no.
she was at friendship doing blah, 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 blah. So y'all know what y'all talking about.
Right. Right.
because that happens, because people will read into your experience like they really know what's up, and they don't. And you just gotta be like, but I get it, because we gotta formulate whatever idea we think has occurred so that we can, like we can understand it. And for me, I think that in its execution, like even sitting here, I'm feeling like a like boil in my stomach, because now that I'm saying this on camera, God is like, so yeah, girl, so you can't even loaf on it now because you recording it.
Like you already put it out in the
Pressure,
universe,
pressure,
you got to put it
pressure.
out there.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so I'm like, this has to be kismet, because this is my daughter's birthday weekend. I'm like, because when I hit you and I was like, is it this weekend that I'm supposed to be here? And I'm like, yo, like you're really saying this, so it's an activation that is awaiting you, and what else you gonna do? Get off the pot if
Right.
not. You know what I mean? And I think that those are the types of things that push me, hype me.
Beyond the curriculum, you're
Mm-hmm.
also planning to do a documentary.
Yes.
So can you
Mm-hmm.
explain like what the documentary is about?
Yeah, so the documentary, well, so at first I was like, it's traveled through a lot of different stuff and phases in my life of like, I'd been saying for years that I wanted to tour. I'd been saying that I wanted to put together something comprehensive. I named this years ago when I said that I was going to be a public speaker back in 2011, going into 2012. I had said I want to do 5 things. I said I want to do a documentary, a TV show, podcast, a book, and a tour. Right, and I named those. I named those things, and I had done some of it, but in lighter ways. And I was really impacted by this documentary called Push Out. And the sister's name is leaving me right now. Something with an M, Monique Green, something like that. But she had did this documentary around black girls in school and the discriminatory process of them in schools. And I thought it was a dope documentary. She's a researcher, kind of like, I mean, like kind of data analyst, but author and all of that stuff. And it hit big. And at the beginning of the documentary, she had it was like a rapper, and I was like, first of all, where she get this rapper from? Because I should have been on the soundtrack, right? Because I was hitting her up like, yo, I've got this, I've got this Black Girl's Worth and da 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 da. So she had put out a documentary, and then there was a myriad. There was like a Mike Sounds Nice. There was like a lot of different like female documentaries that surrounded like hip hop, that surrounded like dynamics with black girls, but nothing hit on like all of the elements that I was like, and I was like, okay, man, if you don't see it, you got to make it. And so the documentary itself is twofold. There's a personal part of it that talks about the journey that of me really coming into the work, the relationship that I had with my late mother, the relationship that I had with my daughter, and like doing the work and growing up as a girl. So I want to like I want to venture back, like growing up in DC and like growing up half in DC, half in North Carolina with the women in that are still living, like all my aunties and stuff. Cause my mom is like 1 of 13, and like with all of my aunties, and talk about like who I was as a girl, like and what I grew up in, and what I was educated on, what they knew to be education, because my mama can't speak on it, so I got to get my aunties to speak on it, right? Those who will be on camera, right? And really look at like what is the mind and how is the mind of a person who does this built, like how I became, and so to have that sort of like my family can tell so many stories about me from being a little girl and stuff like that. So it's in part like that experience of my own education and my own artistic ability. The other side of that is what I is sort of more like education curriculum based, but like the documentary that shows like all these different experiences that black girls and women have, from health and wellness to image, and like all of this stuff that I produced music in, and that we're exploring like that side of like how hip hop, women speaking, hip hop is just like the biggest I guess, voice for me, but like how women speaking, be it as a public speaker, as a singer, but how they are using arts and their voices, and how those women mothered us, right? Because they mothered us in spaces that our mothers couldn't mother us because they didn't necessarily have the permission to do it. They didn't necessarily have the freedom to feel like they could say these things. And so the documentary explores that side of like who are those women, what are those things, and like the life lessons that we were taught, how we were mothered through all these other things. And again, it's still encompassing the re-education. So as we travel through my life of my own re-education of self, we simultaneously will travel down the re-education of these elements that black women and girls need to be able to come back to their creative liberation, or realize their creative liberation through these things, right? So it's like, you'll hear little me, you'll hear, you might like, again, you might be able to like relate to some Foxy, some Eve, some like even Eve coming full circle now, dropping a book called Who's That Girl? But like, I'm like, this is like Eve. Some people don't even know Eve as a rapper. Some of my students didn't know Queen Latifah as a rapper. So, just to even like including that. And so what my goal is to hopefully bring like women artists, creatives, but like counselors, social workers, educators, artists, like, and then mamas and parents, and then like the overall arching community kind of like use this. Like you can use this documentary. And then my goal is to take the documentary around, so that it can be in school spaces, so that it can be in education conferences and arts conferences and things like that, so it can be tangible. you know what I mean, in communities where that it might not normally reach, but now it can reach because, like I said, the backdrop of it is seed. You know what I mean? And that seed, that to me, that seed was the seed that Lauren Hill planted for me. So that's what the documentary is gonna kind of look at. Yeah, in those, in those ways. And there's, like I said, there's a lot of personal stuff, a lot of health journey stuff that I experienced, and symbols, signs and symbols. And so we're gonna look at that. And you're gonna be such a major part of that process. So I'm really, like I said, I'm really excited to share this experience, to have people who I know really believe, and like, because that's one of the things I've always dealt with when it came to like, um whatever I'm doing. Like, I don't want nobody on the project who don't bang with the project.
Right.
And some people don't care about that. They're like, get it done. I'm like,
No,
nah.
that you have to understand the purpose
Yeah.
because
Mhm.
uh, I took my students to meet an author, Tony Weaver Jr.,
Mhm.
and he said, like, oftentimes we are often told to, like, to just be yourself, but
Mhm.
it's like, how do you be yourself if you don't know who you are?
Yeah.
So it's like to kind of watch you kind of go through a journey of like, how did you become Mama Princess?
Yeah.
And that is not just a straight path.
No.
There's many influences that
Yeah.
created this lovely cocktail.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's kind of take the time to break that down so
Yeah.
that people can understand
Mhm.
how are you created,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. I like the two things you said, like the lovely cocktail. I like being referred to as a cocktail. And yeah, I think how you are created, I think that is such like a powerful question that I'm always like, how was I created? Why? Why am I this way? This is funny. I laugh about it. When I was younger, I used to be hurt. My mom used to call me abnormal. She's like, you're not normal. Like, she would say that all the time.
It's like, oh, okay. Like,
And
how
so,
are you supposed to take that?
like, right. And so I would be, she's like, she calls me Missy. She said, Missy, you don't live in the real world. Like, I don't know. Cause she's just like, I don't know how you think, but she's like, it ain't real.
Right.
And luckily, even though it hurt my feelings, I didn't believe her.
But it's like, it's okay to be different.
Yes. And but what I understood was that my mama was born in 1953, and she did not live in a time where a black girl could be artistic and loud and have her thought process and say that out loud, and not think about what other people are thinking, but really be like, and stand on that. And like, my mom would be like, you just gonna get on a plane and go somewhere, and like, you have a child. Okay, she could come with me.
Yeah.
It's not like rocket science, but she did not grow up in that area. So for her, what I was doing was abnormal because it was not her experience. And so that in itself is a lesson, right? Is how do we raise women to become mothers if they so choose, right? To become mothers who do not project that the life that they lead must be the life that their child leads. Now, don't get me wrong, that is hard because I'm learning it. Because I thought I was such a hit mom, and I still think I am, but there are parts of me. I don't project that my daughter has to be an artist, but there are certain things like her confidence that I was like, she's not like me.
Right.
I was surprised. I was like literally surprised. Like, so those were things that I didn't think about. Certain things that I was like, oh, she'll just get that from me naturally. Nope.
No, it's a building block.
And it's a building block, and it's also like not her personality, not her bag. She don't move like that. She don't want to move like that. And so me having the opposite reaction because I thought I'm a hipper mom than my mom, and that's subjective, right? I might be, but guess what? My daughter, I'm finding, might need the mom that my mom was.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I needed so the mom that I am now, I needed.
Right.
No, 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 that's not to say that my mom did a bad job. Okay, make sure I ain't hitting that. That's not to say that my mom did a bad job.
Right.
But it is to say that I became the mother that it's like you become who you needed growing up, and now I'm giving it to my daughter and realizing she don't. Some of this she needs, but some of it she don't.
Right.
It's not who she is. It's not her personality. It's not what she, you know what I'm saying? Now I'm like, dang, it's like certain structured things that I grew up on, my mother was really, really good at. My mother was really, really, I'm not necessarily good at those things. So when I look at my child and I'm like, you do your chores? And she's like, mm-mm. And I'm like, well, how? Why not? I don't get it. Like, because what, like, why didn't that just, but those types of things. So I, I love that I'm gonna divulge this part of myself. Not that I've ever kept it secret, but I think in the way that the documentary and like hip hop documentary, whatever, it's I think it's exciting to tell the story in that way. And then because touring it will give us the ability to be able to then engage with people. Like I just imagine us putting this joint on at schools and like having like groups of mamas and aunties like coming and like it'll be like a real healing session because afterwards when it's all said and done and people be like, yeah, you know that part you was talking about so and so. I'm going through that right now with my daughter and I don't even know. And like we can have a real conversation and you can get the contextual book, things that are tangible that say, hey, not just theory and you know what I'm saying and things like that, to be like, hey, we got this in the book, like here are some alternatives, here's some ways. I don't know which one gonna work for you, but we're gonna put them all down.
Right.
And we're gonna say from based on what we've seen, what we've learned, try these, try these different things. You might need this approach, you might need this approach, and have that be, you know what I'm saying? And I can just imagine if people have the re-education of black girls all around the world and I just imagine people sitting with that.
Yeah.
Like sitting with that. They got their documentary, they got the book, they got the workbook, they got, they got the things. And like, for me, I think the ultimate of seeing that would just be like amazing. And just because I think about that, because also too, those are bits that can go on YouTube. And when I think about every time I go to search for something for my daughter that I want, it's not necessarily there. Like, we talking about cycles because she got her cycle. And I was like, there were things I wanted her to know. But then I was like, well, let me search up like what's on YouTube for black girls, for periods. And there was like hardly nothing.
Right.
And like the things that they did have was like cartoonish or like stuff like, which is cool, but I wanted it to have some cultural context, dog.
Yes. But we don't have that. It's like there's a severe lack of representation.
Yeah.
For black women, black people in general, but especially black women.
Yeah,
it's always geared to white people.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I was just like, man, if we would have started like a little cartoon clip with Mary J. Blige's PMS, today I'm not feeling pretty, and it's like, and you know what I'm saying, and that now you get into music, and then it's coming in, you've been feeling like you got cramps today, but like something that really like join in, like make them really connect, you know what I'm saying? Like, so I was like, there's not a lot of videos for that. And and so every time I find myself complaining about what isn't there, so there's God saying, so
you can fill the void.
Right. So if your documentary is done, then you're the clips. So you can be the reason, you can be the answer and the antidote to somebody else who goes for the Google search to say, black girls and periods, tween ages. Boom. Heel assist hip hop mama. Got that. Okay. Black mother-daughter conflict. Boom. The heel assist. Like, I want to be in the search engine for all the topics, all the things, re-education of black girls and women. So when you put it in, ooh, I got a song. I got a video for that. I got a song for that. You know what I'm saying? And so now, again, when they see this, now they see what's possible. And what that does is make it real, because like they said, I only need one video, but if I have several bits, right, then by it being online, then you might have another girl to be like, I like that. That's the thing I want to do. What she doing right there, I'm gonna build on that. And then she gonna make her own platform and she gonna, grow that and she's gonna do that. So I'm like, yeah. So I could be the, as they, the person who sparks it for, for other people. Like, it's just like, put it there. So it, so it'll be there. My mentor, Jackie, she says, if you build it, they will come. She like trust in that. Like, and stand, she always she said, you have no idea who you are. She does. And I get it. I know why she said it. She's an elder. She's just like, she said, no, really. She said, you have no idea the power that you hold. You don't. She said, but you will. And I receive that. I receive that God sends me women to so that I can know, like so that I can know certain things, and I'm okay with that. So my goal is that hopefully I'll be in I'm aiming to be in all the YouTube searches and things like that I come up at the top of these things, so that my goal, so then it's like I'm the go-to, right? Not I know everything, but I'm the go-to that has at least introduced the topics, so that we can, so we talk about diseases, like, there's no, they have STD or STI videos, but they don't have like they don't have videos for like the common thing diseases that black girls have and why, and like real life conversations. Can you imagine a hip hop music video that starts off with a boy, you know what I'm saying, trying to holler at it, you know what I'm saying, and and like she actually goes through this process of like sleeping with the boy and like thinking like, oh, she's feeling some type of way, and it's like, what might I have, and those conversations that we really do have with our students, that we can tell them certain things, but then if we can also refer them, like, you know what, that's a good thing. Let's watch this video. Let's watch this music video that Princess Best the Heliosis has on such and such. We can actually go there. We can actually go to that
and
topic.
have those resources.
Yeah, have those resources.
Because they're not always available.
Yeah, they're not always available. And so, I think that when I think about anybody black who has done something and has done it with the guise of making sure that our people know, they've done it for that reason. They'd be like, I looked around and it wasn't available for us, so I created it. And I think that in itself is such a powerful thing, to be like, well, we don't have it, so I wanted it to be there, so I put it there, so that by the time my daughter is an adult, and prayerfully if she wants to be a mom, that she can pull up, look, your grandma got something. Your grandma got something on that topic. And and that would be an ultimate moment for me, of saying that, because she gets to say that now with her friends. Right. She's like, Mom, my friends say you're the queen of the DMV. And I'm like, girl, bye. I'll be like, girl, bye. But at the same time, like having a glossary, I look at it like we grew up with encyclopedias, the Encyclopedia Britannica. We had to look up stuff in the encyclopedia and the thesaurus and like all of that stuff. So just to have those glossaries, to have that, and so that's what I want the documentary to do, to be that spark. And I'm gonna let God do God's thing from there with where it goes. I just need to stand in the spot and create it, and that's it.
Right. So we know that the YouTube channel is going to be coming, but where can people find you now?
Okay, so they can find me now. I'm already on YouTube. So on YouTube, they can find me youtube.com, Princess Best Speaks with an S on the end. That's typically where I am, or they can find me on Instagram at Princess Best, like the best, Princess Best the Heliosis, which is heel, HEAL, like heel, and ACIST, Princess Best the Heliosis. So I'm there on Instagram, on TikTok, Facebook probably too, like those platforms. And so yeah, so we doing that. They doing that everywhere. So in the meantime, that's where they can find me. And then probably what'll happen is if any of those get outdated, I'm gonna like sync them to where I am, sync them to where I'm now, so that way it doesn't lose its luster. So
got you. Mm-hmm. All right, and see how you guys glowed from that conversation. I'm gonna catch you guys next time.
Peace.
Bye.